FAFSA on the Web worksheet. Again, I guess this is a great place to just kind of jump right back in. If you look on page 1, and you'll note right in the middle on the left side, it says this worksheet does not contain all the questions from the FAFSA form. If you look on it, we only have about 20 questions here. The paper FAFSA form has about 102 questions, so it doesn't contain all the questions, but we know why, because the web application has skip logic. Notice also that when you complete this FAFSA on the web, this is simply a worksheet that is presented in the same order. You can take this worksheet, go sit down at a computer, and the questions on the computer will pop up in the order that they appear on this form. If you were to do the paper form, they do not. They won't pop up. You'll be jumping all over the application looking. But if you'll do this one, they'll pop up in the order that they're presented here. So not a lot of information. Well, we say not a lot because through the years, historically, we've been criticized for this form being so complex, but a lot of efforts have been made to simplify it. But in this first section, you'll note that we're just collecting your demographic information. We're going to be trying to collect information to determine your student eligibility, making certain that you've registered with Selective Service, that you have a valid Social Security number. We're going to be checking, when you complete the form, you can list up to 10 schools on the form. You can list up to 10 schools, so we'll be collecting and asking you, which schools do you plan to attend? If you don't know their school code, there's a little drop-down box that will allow you to go through and do a search for the schools. Housing status, we'll be asking, are you going to live on campus? Will you live off campus? And notice that I said with parents. There are two types of off-campus situations. One where you're off campus and you're not with your parents, or you're off campus with your parents. So we'll be asking for your dependency status and any special circumstances, and the aid programs that you're interested in. Let's see if we can find that question. Basically, you're going to be presented with a question that asks, what kind of programs do you want to participate in? Do you want to participate in the student employment program? Do you want to participate in the student loan programs? I recommend that if you don't know, that you answer yes. You don't want the financial aid office to exclude you. You can always say, after you receive your award letter, you can always go back and say, I decline it. But say yes so that you get your very best offer from the school. This form is also going to collect demographic information, and that would be in section 3 on this FAFSA for the web worksheet. Same thing with students. We're collecting, just as with students, with parents, we're going to be collecting demographic information. Parents and students' financial information will be provided, and we've already talked about this FAFSA on the web process. Really, the steps that you see there, we'll collect your demographic information, we'll collect a few questions from your parents, we'll ask about your financial information, and on the web, you'll be presented with the opportunity to sign it electronically and submit it, and then you'll get a confirmation page, which we ask you to print and hold for your record. Sometimes your financial aid administrator wants to know that you've done it. Okay, and so you have your confirmation page as your record. Keep everything, keep good records as you're going through this process, because that's important as well. Let me back up on the school selection. Your schools are going to get a copy of the results from this, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But if for some reason you're going to a school and you did not list them on the FAFSA form, they won't get a copy of your records, and you'll have to actually go back and add them. They have a process at the institution where they can add a school, or you can turn around and go and add them using the corrections on the web. So you complete the FAFSA form. What happens? You complete it. It goes to our federal processing center. Whether you mail it in or you do it electronically, it's going to a processing center. They're going to go through and calculate your expected family contribution. You can't use it dollar for dollar. To say that, you know, if it comes out $10,000, that it doesn't mean that your family has $10,000 to contribute. It's more like an index, so your financial aid administrator will be able to determine what your financial need is. So you'll do it, it'll calculate the family contribution, and the students, the college will get a copy of your record, the student aid report, and the financial aid office, once they review it, determine your eligibility, they're going to be sending out an award notification letter for you, and we'll talk about that in a moment, so I won't spend a whole lot of time right here. So how do you get the results? You complete it, you signed it, you submitted it. Hopefully we're doing it electronically based on our recommendation. If you provide an email address, then you're going to be emailed a link to the online SAR. We strongly recommend that you do an email address if you have it, so that you can get the results quickly. If you do not have an email address and you do it the paper form that we held up, you're going to get a student aid report. A lot of kids will come in and say, I got these blue papers. What do I do with it? That student aid report changes colors every year. So students will come in and ask, what do I do with these blue papers, these green papers, these pink papers? That's your student aid report. Again, if the school that you're attending is already listed, there's nothing for you to do. That's for your record. If there is no email address provided and you do it electronically and you don't put an email address, you see here on this bullet that you're going to get a paper SAR acknowledgement. It's just like a little summary page of all the data that you've submitted. Again, the schools listed, they're going to get what is called an ISER record. They get an ISER record, and this data release number, this is the number that the school needs if you forget to put them on there. If you give them this DRN number that's on the front of your student aid report, they can actually pull a copy of your record in. Or again, you can just simply call and add them so that they'll get a copy. So now that your results are in, what's going to happen? We talked about the financial aid office going in and determining your award eligibility. They're going to send you an award notification letter. Notice that I say it's time sensitive. You need to go ahead and apply, respond to the award letter. Either some schools will do active confirmation, some do passive confirmation. Active means I want you to tell me I either accept the award or I decline the award. Some schools make assertions that if you don't or return it to me, then we make an assumption. That's called a passive acceptance. I assume that you accept it unless you tell me. But talk with the school to see what their process is. Make certain that you review it. Did you know also that you could take this award letter and leverage it? Especially if you go into private institutions who might have lots of funds. Take your award letters. You can compare offers. We've been known to see schools. I worked at a private institution at my last job in the financial aid office. I was at a private institution. Everybody is competing for students. If you're a good student, you're a valued asset. Everybody wants you. You can actually compare and ask if another aid office would be willing to match what this financial aid office has given you. Sometimes they can, but depending on and sometimes they can't, depending on, the type of institution. You'll want to make certain that you respond to all communications from the school. And on this slide, I also made a note about verification. When you receive your student aid report back or the results of it, sometimes you might get a comment that says you've been selected for verification. You need to provide a copy of your tax information and other financial records. The government, we have a built-in process where certain students, if you have a high probability based on the answers that you reported, if it's calculated that it appears that you might have made a mistake, then sometimes you're selected for verification. How do you know that? One, it's going to read it. It'll say it to you on your comment page. But two, a quick indicator is you'll get this EFC, and here on the slide I said the EFC is 0, and you'll see that little asterisk by it, and that's an indicator. We are in the financial aid office are trained to look for that EFC and asterisk rather than reading those notes. And all we're going to do is report, take a look at your tax forms. Parents are often unwilling. They don't want to give a copy of their tax return. Why? They think we're going to report them to the IRS. I don't want y'all turning in my papers. I don't want, we don't do that. The financial aid's purpose and role is they're going to take your tax data. If you've reported that your income is $10,000 and it's actually $50,000, all they're going to do is change it from $10,000 to $50,000 and keep moving. So there's no turning you into the IRS, so to speak, there. So you'll need to respond to them, send them the information they need. They'll also send you what is called a verification worksheet, and that's to simply verify your household size, and they want to know the number in college, and that form also helps to determine if there's any untaxed income, you could list it on there. Now here's a note on verification and IRS data match. I said that financial aid administrators are not sending that information to the IRS, but the newest, coolest thing that the Department of Ed has done that aid administrators have been asking for years is that this January, I think today as a matter of fact, we have started an IRS data match for students who are completing the 2009-10 FAFSA form this January. Anybody coming in this January will be presented an option. Would you like for me to go and retrieve your tax information from the IRS? And so you'll have an opportunity to do that. Right now it's in a test mode, but we hope to roll it out in the fall so that if you don't have your tax data, you get an opportunity to go out and draw it down, compare it, and as long as the whole goal is to try to streamline this verification process so that we don't keep asking you to turn in information, that we can actually rely on the data that we get from the IRS. So I've been told today on a conference call we had about 300 students who've actually successfully responded, yes, go retrieve my data from the IRS, and so they're moving along with that process. The schools will know who's doing that as well, so that's a great thing.